said Race. "Someone pinched for pistol. It wasn't Jacqueline de Belfort, so it was someone who knew enough to feel that his crime would be attributed to her. But that someone did not know that a hospital nurse was going to give her morphia and sit up with her all night. And one more thing. Someone had already attempted to kill Lynette Doyle by rolling a boulder over that cliff, and that someone was not Jacqueline de Belfort. Who was it?" "It will be simpler to say who it could not have been. Neither Monsieur Doyle, Madame Allerton, Monsieur Allerton, Mademoiselle Van Schuyler, nor Mademoiselle Bowers could have had anything to do with it. They were all within my sight." It still leaves rather a large field. And what about motive? That is where I hope Monsieur Doyle may be able to help us. There have been several incidents." The door opened and Jacqueline de Belfort entered. She was very pale and stumbled a bit as she walked. "I didn't do it. Please believe me. I didn't do it. Everyone's going to think I did, but I didn't. It's awful, awful. I wish it hadn't happened. I might have killed Simon that night. I was mad, I think, but I didn't do the other." She sat down and burst into tears. Poirot patted her on the shoulder. There, we know you did not kill Madame Doyle. It is proved, yes, it is proved, mon enfant. It was not you." "Who did?" "That is just the question we are asking ourselves. You cannot help us there, my child?" Jacqueline shook her head. "I don't know. Can't imagine. No, I haven't the faintest idea. No, I can't think of anyone who wanted her dead, except me." "Excuse me a minute, I've just thought of something." Race hurried from the room. Jacqueline de Belfort sat with her head downcast, nervously twisting her fingers. She broke out suddenly, "Death is horrible, horrible! I hate it! I hate the thought of it!" "Yes, it is not pleasant to think, is it, that now, at this very moment, someone is rejoicing at the successful carrying out of his or her plan?" "Oh, don't! It's horrible! The way you put it!" "But it is true." "I wanted her dead, and she is dead. What's worse, she died just like I said." "Yes, mademoiselle. She was shot through the head." "When I was right that night at the Cataract Hotel, there was someone listening." "Ah, I wondered if you would remember that. Yes, it is altogether too much of a coincidence that Madame Doyle should be killed in just the way you described." "That man that night, who can it have been?" Poirot was silent for a minute or two. Then he said in quite a different tone of voice, "You are sure it was a man, mademoiselle?" Jackie looked at him in surprise. "Yes, of course. Well, at least—" "Well, mademoiselle?" She frowned, half closing her eyes in an effort to remember. "I thought it was a man." "But now you are not so sure?" No, I can't be certain. I just assumed it was a man. But it was really just a figure, a shadow." "You think it must have been a woman? But surely none of the women on this boat would have wanted to kill Lynette." Poirot merely moved his head from side to side. The door opened and Besner entered. "Will you come and speak with Mr. Doyle, please, Monsieur Poirot? He would like to see you." Jackie sprang up and caught Besner by the arm. "How is he? Is he all right?" "Naturally, he is not all right. The bone is fractured, you understand." "He's not going to die?" "Who said anything about dying? We will get him to civilization, and there he will have an X-ray and proper treatment." "Oh." Her hands came together in convulsive pressure. She sank down again on a chair. Poirot stepped out onto the deck with the doctor, and at that moment Race joined them. They went up to the promenade deck and along to Besner's cabin. Simon Doyle was lying propped with cushions and pillows, an improvised cage over his leg. His face was ghastly in colour, the ravages of pain with shock on top of it. But the predominant expression on his face was bewilderment. the sick bewilderment of a child. Please come in. The doctors told me about Lynette. I can't believe it. Yes, I simply can't believe it's true. I know. It's a bad knock. You know, Jackie didn't do it. I'm certain she didn't. It looks black against her, I dare say, but she didn't. She was a bit tight last night and all worked up. That's why she went for me. But she wouldn't do murder. Not cold-blooded murder. Do not distress yourself, Monsieur Doyle. Whoever shot your wife, it was not Mademoiselle de Belfort. Is that on the square? Mm-hmm. But since it was not Mademoiselle de Belfort, can you give us any idea of who it might have been? Simon shook his head. The look of bewilderment increased. It's crazy. Impossible. Apart from Jackie, nobody could have wanted to do her in. Reflect, Monsieur Doyle. Had she no enemies? Is there no one who had a grudge against her? Again Simon shook his head with the same hopeless gesture. It sounds absolutely fantastic. But there's Windlesham, of course. She more or less chucked him to marry me. But I can't see a polite stick like Windlesham committing murder. Anyway, he's miles away. Same thing with old Sir George Woad. He got it down on Lynette over the house. Disliked the way she was pulling it about. But he's miles away in London. And anyway, to think of murder in such a connection would be fantastic. Listen, Monsieur Doyle. On the first day we came aboard the Carnac, I was impressed by a little conversation which I had with Madame your wife. She was very upset, very distraught. She said, and mark this well, she said that everybody hated her. She said she felt afraid, unsafe, as though everyone around her were an enemy. She was pretty upset at finding Jackie aboard. So was I. That is true, but it does not quite explain those words. When she said she was surrounded by enemies, she was almost certainly exaggerating. But all the same, she did mean more than one person. Well, you might be right there, insomuch as a name on the passenger list, you see. That upset her. A name in the passenger list? What name? Well, you see, she didn't actually tell me. As a matter of fact, I wasn't listening very carefully. I was going over the Jacqueline business in my mind. But as far as I remember, Lynette said something about doing people down in business, and that it made her uncomfortable to meet anyone who had a grudge against her family. Although I don't really know the family history very well, I gather Lynette's mother was a millionaire's daughter. Her father was only just ordinary plain wealthy, but after his marriage she naturally began playing the markets, or whatever you call it. As a result, of course, several people got it in the neck. You know, affluence one day, gutter the next. Well, I gather there was someone on board whose father had got up against Lynette's father and taken a pretty hard knock. And I remember Lynette saying, "It's pretty awful when people hate you without even knowing you." Yes, that would explain what she said to me. For the first time she was feeling the burden of her inheritance and not its advantages. You are quite sure, Monsieur Doyle, that she did not mention this man's name? Simon shook his head ruefully. I didn't pay much attention. Just said nobody minds what happened to their fathers nowadays. Life goes too fast for that. Something of that kind. Besner said dryly, but I can have a guess. There is certainly a young man with a grievance on board. You mean Ferguson? Yes. He spoke against Mrs. Doyle once or twice. I myself have heard him. What can we do to find out? Asked Simon. Poirot replied, Colonel Race and I must interview all the passengers. Until we have got their stories, it would be unwise to form theories. And then there is the maid. We ought to interview her first of all. It would perhaps be as well if we did that here. Monsieur Doyle's presence might be helpful. Yes, good idea. Has she been with Mrs. Doyle long? A couple of months, that's all. Only a couple of months? Why, you don't think had Madame any valuable jewellery? There were the pearls. She once told me they were worth 40 or 50,000. My God! You don't think those damn pearls? Robbery is possibly a motive. All the same, it seems hardly credible. Well, we shall see. Let us have the maid here. Louise Bourget was that same vivacious Latin brunette who Poirot had seen one day and noticed. She was anything but vivacious now. She had been crying and looked frightened. Yet there was a kind of sharp cunning apparent in her face which did not prepossess the two men favourably towards her. "You are Louise Bourget?"
"Yes, monsieur."
"When did you last see Madame Doyle alive?"
"Last night, monsieur. I was in her cabin to undress her."
"What time was that?"
"Some time after 11, monsieur. I cannot say exactly when. I undress Madame and put her to bed, and then I leave."
"How long did all that take?"
10 minutes, monsieur. Madame was tired. She told me to put the lights out when I went."
"And when you had left her, what did you do?"
"I went to my own cabin, monsieur, on the deck below."
"And you heard or saw nothing more that can help us?"
"How could I, monsieur?"
"That, mademoiselle, is for you to say, not for us." He stole a sideways glance at him.
"But, monsieur, I was nowhere near. What could I have seen or heard? I was on the deck below. My cabin, it was on the other side of the boat even. It is impossible that I should have heard anything. Naturally, if I'd been unable to sleep, if I'd mounted the stairs, then perhaps I might have seen the assassin, the monster, enter or leave Madame's cabin. But as it is—"
She threw out her hands appealingly to Simon.
"Monsieur, I implore you. You see how it is. What can I say?"
"My good girl, don't be a fool. Nobody thinks you saw or heard anything. You'll be quite all right. I'll look after you. Nobody's accusing you of anything."
"Monsieur's very good."
She dropped her eyelids modestly. "We take it then that you saw and heard nothing?"
"That is what I said, monsieur."
"And you know of no one who had a grudge against your mistress?" To the surprise of the listeners, Louise nodded her head vigorously.
"Oh, yes, that I do know. To that question I can answer yes most emphatically."
"You mean Mademoiselle de Belfort?"
"Yes, certainly, but it is not of her I speak. There was someone else on this boat who disliked Madame, who was very angry because of the way Madame had injured him."
"Good Lord!" Simon exclaimed. "What's all this?" Louise went on, still emphatically, nodding her head with the utmost vigour.
"Yes, yes, yes, it is as I say. It concerns the former maid of Madame, my predecessor. There was a man, one of the engineers on this boat, who wanted her to marry him, and my predecessor, Marie her name was, she would have done so. But Madame Doyle, she made inquiries, and she discovered that this Fleetwood already had a wife of colour, you understand, a wife of this country. She had gone back to her own people, but he was still married to her, you understand. And so Madame, she told all this to Marie, and Marie was very unhappy and would not see Fleetwood any more. And this Fleetwood, he was infuriated, and when he found out that Madame Doyle had formerly been Mademoiselle Linette Ridgway, he tells me he would like to kill her. Her interference ruined his life, he said."
Louise paused triumphantly. "That is interesting," said Race. Poirot turned to Simon. "Had you any idea of this?" "None whatever. And I doubt if Lynette even knew the man was on the boat. She'd probably forgotten all about the incident. Did you say something to Mrs. Doyle about this?"
"No, monsieur, of course not."
Poirot asked, "Do you know anything about your mistress's pearls?"
"Her pearls?"
Louise's eyes opened very wide.
"She was wearing them last night."
"And you saw them when she came to bed?"
"Yes, monsieur."
"Where did she put them?"
"On the table by the side, as always."
"And that is where you last saw them?"
"Yes, monsieur."
"Did you see them there this morning?" A startled look came into the girl's face.
"Mon Dieu, I did not even look. I came up to the bed. I see Madame, and then I cry out and I rush out of the door, and I faint."
Hercule Poirot nodded his head. "You did not look, but I have the eyes which notice, and there were no pearls on the table beside the bed this morning." Hercule Poirot's observation had not been at fault. There were no pearls on the table by Lynette Doyle's bed. Louise Bourget was bidden to make a search among the net's belongings, and according to her, all was in order. Only the pearls had disappeared. As they emerged from the cabin, a steward was waiting to tell them that breakfast had been served in the smoking room. As they passed along the deck, Race paused to look over the rail. "I see you have had the idea, my friend." "Yes, it suddenly came to me when Fanthorpe mentioned thinking he'd heard a splash. It's perfectly possible that after the murder, the murderer threw the pistol overboard." "You really think that is possible, my friend?" "Well, it's a suggestion. After all, the pistol wasn't anywhere in the cabin. First thing I looked for. All the same, it is incredible that it should have been thrown overboard." "Where is it, then?" "If it is not in Madame Doyle's cabin, there is logically only one other place where it could be." "Where?" "Mademoiselle de Belfort's cabin." "Ah, yes, I see. Well, she's out of her cabin. Shall we go and have a look now?" "No, my friend, that would be precipitate. It may not have been put there yet." "What about an immediate search of the whole boat?" That way we would show our hand. No, we must work with great care. It is very delicate, our position at the moment. Let us discuss the situation as we eat." They went to the smoking room. "Well," said Race as he poured himself a cup of coffee, "we've two definite leads. The disappearance of the pearls, and this man Fleetwood. As regards the pearls, robbery seems indicated, but I don't know whether you'll agree with me, but it was an odd moment to choose, eh?" "Well, yes, exactly. To steal the pearls at such a moment invites a close search of everybody on board. How could the thief hope to get away with his booty? He might have gone ashore and dumped it. The company always has a watchman on the bank. Then that is not feasible. Was the murder committed to divert attention from the robbery? No, that does not make sense. It is profoundly unsatisfactory. But supposing Madame Doyle woke up and caught the thief in the act, and therefore the thief shot her, but she was shot while she slept. Aha! So that does not make any sense. You know, I have a little idea about those pearls. Yet, no, it is impossible. Because if my idea was right, the pearls would not have disappeared. Tell me, what did you think of the maid?" "Well, I wondered if she knew more than she was saying." "You too had that impression?" "Definitely not a nice girl. Yes, I would not trust her." "You think she had something to do with the murder?" "No, I would not say that." "With the theft of the pearls, then?" "That is more probable. She had only been with Madame Doyle a very short time. She may be a member of a gang that specializes in jewel robberies. In such a case there is often a maid with excellent references. Unfortunately, we are not in a position to seek information on these points, and yet that explanation does not quite satisfy me. Those pearls. Ah, sacre, my little idea ought to be right. And yet nobody would be so imbecile. Well, what about the man Fleetwood?" We must question him. It may be that we have there a solution. If Louise Bourget's story is true, he had a definite motive for revenge, and he could have overheard the scene between Jacqueline and Monsieur Doyle. And when they had left the saloon, he could have darted in and secured the gun. Yes, it is all quite possible. And that letter J scrawled in blood. That, too, would accord with a simple, rather crude nature. In fact, he's just the person we're looking for. Only, you see, I recognize my own weakness. It has been said of me I like to make a case difficult. This solution that you put to me, it is too simple, too easy. I cannot feel it really happened. And yet that may be the sheer prejudice on my part. Well, we'd better have the fellow here." Race rang the bell and gave the order. "Any other possibilities?" "Plenty, my friend. There is, for example, the American trustee." "Pennington?" "Yes, Pennington. There was a curious little scene in here the other day." He narrated the happenings to Race. "You see, it is significant. Madame, she wanted to read all the papers before signing, so he makes the excuse of another day. And then the husband, he makes a very significant remark. What was that? He says, I never read anything. I sign what I am told to sign. You perceive the significance of that? Pennington did. I saw it in his eye. He looked at Doyle as though an entirely new idea had come into his head. Just imagine, my friend, that you have been left trustee to the daughter of an intensely wealthy man. You use, perhaps, that money to speculate with. I know it is so in all the detective novels. But you read of it too in the newspapers. It happens, my friend. It happens. Well, I don't dispute it. There is perhaps still time to make good by speculating wildly. Your ward is not yet of age. And then she marries. The control passes from your hands into hers at a moment's notice. It is a disaster. But there is still a chance. She is on her honeymoon. She will perhaps be careless about business. A casual paper slipped in among others, signed without reading. But Lynette Doyle is not like that. Honeymoon or no honeymoon, she is a businesswoman. And then her husband makes a remark, and a new idea comes to the desperate man who is seeking a way out from ruin. If Lynette Doyle were to die, her fortune would pass to her husband, and he would be so easy to deal with. He would be a child in the hands of an astute man like Andrew Pennington. Mon cher colonel, I tell you, I saw the thought pass through Andrew Pennington's head. If only it were Doyle I had got to deal with. That is what he was thinking. Quite possible, I dare say. But you've no evidence. Alas, no. Then there's young Ferguson. He talks bitterly enough. Not that I go by talk. But he might be the fellow whose father was ruined by old Ridgway. It's a little far-fetched, but it's possible. People do brood over bygone wrongs sometimes. And there's my fellow. Yes, there is your fellow, as you call him. He's a killer, we know that. But on the other hand, I can't see any way in which he could have come up against Lynette Doyle. Their orbits don't touch. Unless accidentally she had become possessed of evidence knowing his identity. That's possible, but it seems highly unlikely. Ah, here's our would-be bigamist. Fleetwood was a big, truculent-looking man. He looked suspiciously from one to the other of them as he entered the room, and Poirot recognised him as the man he'd seen talking to Louise Bourget. You wanted to see me? We did. You probably know a murder was committed on this boat last night. Yes. But I believe it is true that you had reason to feel anger against the woman who was killed. A look of alarm sprang up in Fleetwood's eyes. Who told you that? You considered Mrs. Doyle interfered between you and a young woman? Oh, I know who told you that. That lying French hussy. She's a liar through and through, that girl. But this particular story happens to be true? No, it's a dirty lie. You'll say that, although you don't know what it is yet. That shot told. The man flushed and gulped. It is true, is it not, that you were going to marry the girl Marie, and that she broke it off when she discovered that you were a married man already? What business was it of hers? You mean what business was it of Mrs. Doyle's? Well, bigamy is bigamy, you know. It wasn't like that. I married one of the locals out here. It didn't answer, so she went back to her people. I've not seen her for half a dozen years. Still, you were married to her. Mrs. Doyle, or Miss Ridgway as she was then, found out all this. Yes, she did, curse her. Nosing about when no one ever asked her to. I'd have treated Marie right. I'd have done anything for her. And she'd never have known about the other if it hadn't been for that meddlesome young lady of hers. Yes, I'll say it. I did have a grudge against the lady, and I felt bitter about it when I saw her on this boat, dressed all up in her pearls and diamonds and lording it all over the place. Never a thought that she'd broken up a man's life. I felt bitter, all right. But if you think I'm a dirty murderer, if you think I went and shot her with a gun, well, that is a damned lie. I never touched her, and that's God's truth. He stopped. The sweat was rolling down his face. Where were you last night between the hours of 12 and 2? In my bunk asleep. And my mate'll tell you so. Well, we shall see. All right, that'll be all, thank you. Eh bien, inquired Poirot as the door closed behind Fleetwood. Race shrugged his shoulders. He tells quite a straight story. Nervous, of course, but not unduly so. We'll have to investigate his alibi, though I don't suppose it'll be decisive. His mate was probably asleep. This fellow could have slipped in and out if he wanted to. It depends whether anyone else saw him. Yes, one must inquire as to that. The next thing, I think, is whether anyone heard anything, which might give us a clue as to the time of the crime. Besnard places it as having occurred between 12 and 2. It seems reasonable to hope that someone among the passengers may have heard the shot, even if they didn't recognize it for what it was. I didn't hear anything of the kind myself. What about you? Poirot shook his head. Me, I slept absolutely like the log. I heard nothing at all. I might have been drugged, I slept so soundly. Pity. Well, let's hope we have a bit of luck with the people who have cabins on the starboard side. Fanthorpe we've done. The Allertons come next. I'll send the steward to fetch them. Mrs. Allerton came in briskly. She was wearing a soft grey striped silk dress. Her face looked distressed. "Oh, it's too horrible!" "Please sit down, madame." "Thank you. I can hardly believe it. That lovely creature, everything to live for, dead. I almost feel I can't believe it." "I know how you feel, madame." "Oh, I'm so glad you're on board. You'll be able to find out who did it. I'm so glad it isn't that poor tragic girl." "Ah, you mean Mademoiselle de Belfort. Who told you she did not do it?" "Oh, Cornelia Robson. You know, she's simply thrilled by it all. It's probably the only exciting thing that's ever happened to her. Probably the only exciting thing that'll ever happen to her. But she's so nice, she's terribly ashamed of enjoying it. She thinks it awful of her. But I mustn't chatter. You want to ask me questions?" "If you please. You went to bed at what time, madame?" "Just after 10:30. "And you went to sleep at once?" "Yes, I was sleepy." "And did you hear anything at all during the night?" "I think I heard a splash and someone running." "Or the other way around?" "It's rather hazy. I just had a vague idea that someone had fallen overboard at sea. A dream, you know. And then I woke up and listened. But it was all quite quiet." "Do you know what time that was?" "No, I'm afraid I don't. But I don't think it was very long after I went to sleep. I mean, within the first hour or so." "Alas, madame, that is not very definite." "Oh, I know it isn't. It's no good trying to guess, though, is it, when I haven't the vaguest idea?" "Absolument. Is that all you can tell us, madame?" "I'm afraid so." "Have you actually met Madame Doyle before?" "No, Tim had. I've heard a great deal about her, of course, though, through our cousin, Joanna Southwood, but I'd never spoken to her till we met at Aswan." "I have one other question, madame, if you will pardon me for asking it." "I should love to be asked an indiscreet question." "It is this. Did you or your family ever suffer any financial loss through the operations of Madame Doyle's father, Melhuish Ridgway?" Mrs. Allerton looked thoroughly astonished. "Oh, no. The family finances have never suffered except by dwindling. You know, everything pays so much less interest than it used to. But there's never been anything melodramatic about our poverty. My husband left very little money, but what he left I still have. It just doesn't yield as much as it used to yield." "I thank you, madame. Perhaps you would ask your son to come to us." Tim said lightly when his mother came. "Ordeal over? My turn now? What sort of things did they ask you?" "Only whether I heard anything last night. And luckily I didn't hear anything at all. I can't think why not. After all, Annette's cabin's only one way away from mine. I would have thought I would have heard the shot. Oh, now go along, Tim, because they're waiting for you." To Tim Allerton, Poirot repeated his previous questions. Tim answered. "I went to bed early, 10:30 or so, read for a bit, put out my light just after 11. "Did you hear anything after that?" "Heard a man's voice saying good night, I think, not very far away." "Oh, that was me saying good night to Mrs. Doyle," said Race. "Yes? Well, after that I went to sleep. Then later I heard a kind of hullabaloo going on. Somebody calling Fanthorpe, I remember. And Mademoiselle Robson when she ran out from the observation saloon. Yes, I suppose that was it. Then a lot of different voices. Then somebody running along the deck. Then a splash. Then I heard old Besner booming out something about 'careful now, not too quick.'" "You heard a splash?" "Well, something of that kind." "Are you sure it was not a shot you heard?" I suppose it might have been. I did hear a cork pop. Perhaps that was the shot. I may have imagined the splash from connecting the idea of a cork with liquid pouring into a glass. I know my foggy idea was that there was some kind of party going on, and I wished they'd all go to bed and shut up." "Anything more after that?" Tim shrugged his shoulders. "After that? Oblivion. You heard nothing more. Nothing whatever." "Thank you, Monsieur Aleton." Tim got up and left the cabin. "Who is next?" Race pored thoughtfully over a plan of a promenade deck of a Karnak. There was Fanthorpe, young Allerton, Mrs. Allerton, and then the empty cabin, Simon Doyle's. Now, who is on the other side of Mrs. Doyle? The old American dame. If anyone heard anything, she would have done. Then, if she is up, we had better have her along.